Fuzzy, let's get into it. Now the story I sent to everybody, I have it in front of me. Let me just pull it up. 90% of players have walked away from Helldivers 2. The numbers are the lowest it's ever been. And why is that? Well, I mean, people got their fill. It's a great game. Let's not make a mistake here. The people walked away because it's not getting content. So, same thing that happened with Halo Infinite. This is one of those situations where Sony had this game made. It's a GaaS game, and it knocked it out of the park. Not Sony per se, but the developer knocked it out of the park. It was highly reviewed. It's a well-running game. Even when it was having some issues, it still ran well for me. I didn't run into half the issues that some people were reporting. Maybe I just got lucky. And the game has a great multiplayer draw. You can go and you can play with your buddies. I dropped down the planets plenty of times and just went out there and did my own thing, and it was just as much fun. Obviously, I got killed a lot more, but it was still fun nonetheless, right? Yeah. We are in a position, and I say we, meaning Sony, is in a position right now where their whole scheme of what Sony looks like is they're trying to adopt what Xbox is doing so well. Xbox has games as a service that are making money, but more importantly, gaining hundreds of thousands, in the millions of players. Like all of their big IPs have millions and millions of players. Now, Helldivers did have millions and millions of players, but they don't have that same success anymore. A lot of people have walked away from it because, well, I'm sure that it has a lot to do with the lack of content. Now, the story, which I'm going to pull in a second, was written by Forbes, and they're the ones that did the headline. I literally took their headline and I used it as the title of the show because that's the big story here. Mm-hmm. Is it safe to assume that Helldivers maybe doesn't release in 2024 because I don't think that they were expecting it to hit the way it did. So maybe the Xbox version hasn't even been started. But I think it's safe to assume, without making an ass out of you and me, Fuzzy Belvedere, that this game is definitely coming to Xbox at some point. Because you know what? Xbox gamers are the one that's probably going to support it. I would even dare say more than the PlayStation community, because the support for this in the high 80% at its peak was PC. Now, granted, it did drop off a little bit where you had like maybe a 40-60 split, but that 40%, it didn't really get any higher because, well, they don't really care for, and I say PlayStation players are more, drawn to the single player story-driven movie-like titles, which they don't have right now. Let's talk about it.
Well, I think one of the other factors that contributed to the decline of the player base, other than like normally games have like this peak and then this drop off type of deal, but aside from that, let's not forget the whole PSN required deal that kind of pissed a lot of the PS, or not the PS, but like the PC crowd off to some extent. Some of us might look at it as somewhat silly as far as, it's just another login. It's not that big of a deal. But in the grand scheme of things, most people prefer Steam over other, launchers and things like that. Not everyone, but a good bit, I would say a majority probably prefer Steam. And then when you have this PSN requirement that Sony was trying to push, which they eventually backed away from, I think that hurt their potential growth or steady sustainability as far as the PC crowd to some extent. They didn't really incentivize them to even create that PSN other than, we're making it a requirement, and then they did a 180 kind of deal. But they could have incentivized it or enticed them with extra skins or maybe a few easier unlocks or something like that as far as some of your stratagems and stuff like that. But yeah, it's one of those things where Arrowhead made a good games as a service for the launch, but as far as their longer roadmap, I don't think they were expecting like you said, the reception that they got, and then trying to catch up or keep up with that. I mean, they had some pretty interesting concepts where they can kind of either manually work in the background or have AI work in the background to kind of help or toughen up some of the drops that you guys do. So in other words, you drop into the map and everybody's getting slaughtered and they're having a hard time. There might be like, what I forget what they would call them, but it was almost like an overlord, either an employee at the office or their AI would say, hey, these guys are getting their butt kicked. Let me drop a perfect stratagem to kind of have them rebound back and things. So they've had some interesting things that they were going to mix into this whole games as a service thing that they've implemented into the game. But maintaining the PC player base, that I don't think they were as prepared for that. Like, once you reach a certain level, it's like, what else is there to do? Oh, okay, we now have mechs. Okay, what's after mechs and things like that. So from an end game standpoint, I think that's the wall that they've kind of run into to some extent. But like I said, the PSN login didn't help matters. Not having quite the fulfilling roadmap or unlocks for the seasons and things like that that people were hoping for may have hurt things as well. But there's also a lot of other cool games that have come out as well. So, if you're going to stay in that top 10 category as far as most played game on Steam and other, platforms and things like that, you got to keep the content flowing. You also have to make sure that you're doing something better or more unique than the next game that comes out a week or a month or several weeks later, to make sure that you don't lose your player base to that game. And then you might rebound after that game stretches its legs for a bit, and you may get some of your players back. But it all depends on the roadmap that you have for the content. Depends on, like in the case of the PSN, what incentives there are for the PC crowd to actually create their PSN login and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a shame. But a lot of games do get these types of drop offs, but they have to focus on the rebound. Destiny is one of those that has been better than most with rebounds, and that was even before they were acquired type of deal. Some DLCs would hit, some would miss. They would have one that misses, and then they would double down, and by the next DLC, by that point, it would land a lot better with their player base. So that's what Helldivers has to look at. But I would say, if it was up to Arrowhead, I'm pretty sure they would be working on a Xbox version. But PlayStation being PlayStation and the petty sons of what they are type of deal, I would say we probably have a better chance of having Steam on Xbox and accessing it that way than them actually making one. But maybe Hiroki Totoki, in his effort of chasing money or chasing the money to keep PlayStation afloat long term, maybe he sees the writing on the wall and says, hey, you know what? We put this Lego game on the Switch. Yeah, well, why don't we throw a bone and see if we can get an extra million or two players out of it? And I'm pretty sure they would probably get at least a million or two player base added to their fold as far as from Xbox if they offered a version for it. So we'll see. I'm not going to hold my breath for it. I've already played it on PC, but it would make sense in a games as a service playing field to make that version. I mean, look at how MLB did better on Xbox, like the first 2 or 3 years after it released on Xbox compared to the PlayStation player base. Just saying, might be worth their while.
Again, is it not business, Scamsley, after it's all said and done? I just find it pretty ridiculous. Like, if I pull this out of my rear and you're like, yeah, that BoomStick is looking to farm engagement, I guess you can accuse me of that. Well, I have the story right in front of me. Now, this was written by Paul Tassi, senior contributor over at Forbes.com. And the title is exactly what you saw in my title. After initial success, Helldivers 2 has lost 90% of its players with no sign of recovery. That is the article. And if you think that I'm pulling your leg here, well, there are two tales for this story. And you know what, Fuzzy, I do want to bring you back in before I bring Gamsley. I'm sorry, because I forgot to make mention of this.
How dare you?
I know, shame on me as a host. There are two games going in opposite directions.
Mm-hmm.
Palworld, which released earlier this year to unbelievable, redonkulous success, has once again made its way into the top 10 with the new the summer update. It's number 9. It had a 135,480 concurrent players. So let's look at, well, Helldivers. Helldivers 2 on Steam right now is listed at number 43 with 44,938 concurrent players.
Mhm.
Big difference.
Oh, yeah.
And again, content is king.
Mhm.
Palworld gets an update, boom, top 10. No update, continues to drop. People are writing stories, but yet I'm crazy for talking about it publicly. I don't get the PlayStation community. It's like you can't ever challenge Sony. You folks need to wake up, man. Honestly, go out, touch some grass, pick up a different controller that's not PlayStation, and maybe you'll enjoy gaming instead of all you do is complain. And when someone says anything negative, it's the attack dogs are let loose. I mean, before we bring Gamsley back in, what are your thoughts on Palworld making a resurgence?
Well, like you said, it's about that content. The more content or the more frequent you offer content, the more likely you're to keep your player base. And their player base dropped off a bit. Like I said, it happens with a lot of games, but it's all about how you have that roadmap to keep them on board or to bring them back when they, step away. Obviously, that content, that recent update was appealing enough to bring players back. I would say, as far as for PlayStation players, probably the bigger thing to look at is if Helldivers 2 is dropping, how far up the list or how far down the list is God of War Ragnarok? Because yes, it has replayability for the light roguelike type mode, but I'm pretty sure not charting anywhere near as high. And then we just had Ghost of Tsushima not too long ago, which also has a multiplayer component, which I complained about. A lot of the PlayStation players didn't play. It's like trying to queue for some of the raids and stuff like that. Not many of the vocal ones out there were playing, so it is what it is. That single player experience, that's great, but single player experiences don't last long on Steam because there isn't much to do once you beat the game. So that's why I would say look at where God of War is, look at where Ghost of Tsushima is, and that one had the most, I guess, hype more so than even Ragnarok, just simply because of that style of game does have its appeal and it does have a multiplayer component to it. But they're going to always cry foul when it's, like you said before, when it's an Xbox thing. Oh, well, their player base dropped off and it's all because of the Xbox players not playing the game or whatever. But yet when we say the same thing about like Helldivers 2, oh no, it's not that. It's just the PC crowd shouldn't be exposed to our exclusives. And it's like, just grow up. Just either play the game or don't play the game. Just that would probably make a better conversation if they actually played the game or whatnot, or continued to play the game. But it is what it is.
Could you help me out here, Gamsley?
For this particular game, like Fuzzy has said, it just needs lengthy content people want to play, but too bad that you play 10 hours of this game and you've seen everything, and there's no use in playing this because it's a terrible game and nobody actually likes this game. You're all frauds. You don't like this game. Don't do this to yourself. You don't like this game. This game is useless after 10 hours. Useless. I said it on the top. I said it day one. It makes no sense why you play this game. It doesn't make sense. Drop something we care about. No, in all seriousness, though, they just need to expand on the lore and the universe in its entirety. So all they got to do is drop a lengthy upgrade like Palworld did, because it was pretty lengthy, and Palworld does drop consistently as well. Palworld just hit a larger audience too. Not a larger audience. That's not what I meant, but a larger demographic. Like, people love this genre of like survival game, and there's a beginning, there's an end, and there's a very satisfying loop. Right? There's a loop there that's very satisfying and takes longer in general to complete. So, they just need a big update that expands on that world and give us a reason to care about what we're actually doing and the end point of the thing, Like, just build on that world, give me a big expansion pack, and I'm sure people are going to jump back in and relove the game, as I should say. Yeah, I think that's all they have to do. I don't think they have to go to other platforms, to be honest. I don't think so. They have a large fan base on both places that love this game. It's a very apparent. And there's always down periods. It's just that the length of the down period, right? The length of no significant upgrade to this live service. It's an obvious live service game. They even titled it at one point. It's just too lengthy and people drop off. Like, there's too much to play. So if Palworld gets an update, a big lengthy update first, all those people, those 25-ish million people that jumped in day one and loved that game will go back and jump in. So that's all Helldivers 2 has to do. Give me a big update, and my friends or my brother will hop back in and bug me to hop back in, or drag me by my legs to come back into that stupid game and play it again. Yeah, it just needs to update. Now, do I dismiss the fact that putting it on Xbox will drag new players in and give it a big boost, as is right now without a content drop? Yes, obviously, you put it on Xbox, you find new people, you find new players. Yes, it will spike it back up, but the bigger problem is it's just dry. It's just dry out there right now for that game. So give it a big shot in the arm and give it a lengthy update, and people will come back.
Fair opinion. Crispy Bomb, let's bring you in and get your hot take on this. I disagree with Gamsley, but we normally do. But guess what? We're still brothers, so we're allowed to do that.
Hey, hold on. I did say just now, give it to Xbox, you're gonna find a new audience.
Yeah, no,
but
I know you did.
Also, give it a big update, and you'll find the same audience. It's just, it's how these work.
Yeah, well, listen, it's a live service game. You need content to keep it moving, but you also need new players.
Yeah.
And right now, it's not available on Xbox. And we saw what happened with something like Sea of Thieves that released on the PlayStation, and it was the #1 selling game in May. Now, granted, did it have a drop off? It did. It absolutely did. It's not the #1 selling game in June, but does that make it not a success? No, it doesn't. But with that said, Crispy Bomb, where do you kind of fall? Because there's a lot of pushback from some folks in the chat that do not believe Sony will ever release a game. Like, for instance, Lego Horizon was mentioned. Folks, I'm here to tell you, wait until 2025. You're going to be all of these folks that are kind of putting their fingers in their ears and ducking real tight into the corners of their rooms. Sony is slow at adoption. They do not have the same gusto as what Xbox does. They are eventually going to put their games on Xbox. And I'm telling you, I can't specifically say which game it is. I really do in my heart of hearts believe that you are two shakes of a stick from Spider-Man 2018 and Miles Morales dropping as a double pack on Xbox. Now, do I have that on good authority? No, I do not. That's my opinion, and I could be a complete knucklehead, but I believe that's going to happen. Sony is in trouble with finances, folks. And here, this is going to sound insulting, but everyone has said it, so I'm going to join the bandwagon. You PlayStation players are not enough. You don't buy enough games. You go on social media and talk about it, but you don't buy the freaking games. I buy the games for an Xbox. I buy the games. So if you're not buying the games and PC players do buy the games, who else could they get money from? Well, that would be Xbox. And Xbox players do like multiplayer games. And quite frankly, and again, I know that that Gamsley will disagree with me here, I happen to really like Helldivers 2. I thought it was a great game. I would rather play it on Xbox. What are your thoughts, Chris Baum? Because you are our multiplayer guy, especially when it comes to Gears.
Well, I mean, Gears aside, because I mean the hype is real. Let's look at it this way: Sony is publishing this game, correct? I mean,
yes.
Let's be honest, okay? Their marketing has been deplorable at best. All right. They have mechs came into the game and they had nothing to say. And this is where you get a lot of pushback because people are like, why do I need to hear about ESO again? Why do I need to hear about Sea of Thieves again in the showcase? Now, we didn't hear it this time because they were quick to the point, get it done, here you go. Okay? But that's marketing. That, I mean, you could tell me it's not, but it is. Put Doom in there, put Gears in there, and then have these other games that are live service games that, mean something to a subset of people. And Sony continues to ignore it. I mean, if that State of Play had some new Helldivers 2 content, I think people will be more hyped up. And that's where I go and say, like, we used to look at Sony and say, your marketing is genius and everything else. And it's not the same anymore. And you need to accept it and understand it. Maybe it's because, the adoption rate on PC compared to PlayStation is way better. And I don't know, maybe it makes them salty. I don't know. All I know is that I've given Gears 5 hate. Boom has given Halo Infinite hate on the content that they come out with, and they make it better. Okay? It takes time. We understand that. All right? But it's been a lull. And then you see a game like Palworld, which is not my jam. But I'm going to tell you right now, for those survival people, for those people that love Pokemon, I mean, you got guns on the Pokemon. Like, it's simplistic, but they also announced that as well. So you think about that. You say, what does Sony think about Helldivers 2? I say, you know what? Release it on Xbox. They'll market it better for you. Sorry, you'll make money off of it, but you got to deal with it. Because right now, live service games, regardless of how you feel about the regurgitation, they market them very well. And they actually show that they love the community because they will put it on the showcase. So I don't understand why people get mad about this. It's just the fact. Like, Xbox does better at these live service games. It's just the way it is, okay? They've been doing it forever. We've played Halos with multiplayer forever with a campaign, all right? What do you want from us? We say, hey, yeah, bring it on Xbox. I'll try it out. I don't even care if it's in Game Pass. I'll pay $30 for it. I will. I'll try it out. You know what I mean? Because I have Game Pass for all the games that I know I want. You know what I mean? And then, oh, okay, Helldivers 2 comes over here. You know what? That's an interesting concept. I've seen a lot of people enjoy it. Let me try it out. If it ain't for me, it ain't for me. But you know what? I didn't spend half as much as some of the people have. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, I just feel like people are ignoring the fact that, live service games are important. And, we look at the Fortnites, we look at all these things like PUBG. Like, PUBG came out on Xbox first. Like, come on, people. Like, Xbox has been looking at this for years. They know what to do. You might not like it in certain aspects, but I'm going to tell you right now, they know how to market these games. And I don't think PlayStation knows what to do because they're talking like they're pivoting to all single player again. But the problem is you have this lull, and you have a game like Helldivers, which had success, and then you just let it die. That's what I feel like. So why not just release it on Xbox? Why not do it? I mean, I'm sure Arrowhead's all for it. I mean, you already built the game in PC. You can port it to Xbox. Sorry, people. Like, you don't.
x86 architecture is what it's just a matter. It probably. I'm not saying it'd be as simple as cut and paste, but they could bring it over without breaking the bank or putting their devs into a strain.
And I mean, can we all acknowledge that, like, the PC base is far greater, and that includes Palworld as well. Like, the PC base is far greater. Like, can you just like say, you know what? Like, let's just try to make a great game and really make the community the most important thing. And I think that's what Xbox has done over the years. I mean, to continue to see ESO in showcases and stuff like that, it says something. It says, why would they do that? Because the player base is there, and we want, if you're all there just for that, I'm good with it. If you're here for Gears, I'm good with it. Like, they need to do something that is out of the box for Sony. And that's something that I don't know. I don't know if they can do it.